I'm John Batchelor. Malcolm Hoenlein, Conference of Presidents, is here. We're going to turn to a subject that sounds like a term of art. It's been several weeks since I've been able to speak of it because I need Malcolm's very careful and intricate explanation. This is called UDI. It's simple enough to explain. The Palestinian so-called authority, led by the once upon a time, a long time ago, elected president Mahmoud Abbas, came up with a plan about a year and a half ago out of desperation and cynicism. And that plan is to go to the General Assembly of the United Nations and buy enough votes from its cronies and also the dictators of the world who are only interested in provoking the United States and its allies, to buy enough votes to get the General Assembly to impose the so-called 67 borders, which were really the 49 borders, and without a negotiation and without any way of making peace with Israel, just impose a Palestinian state. This is a form of lawfare. We've talked about this before. The Palestinians have cynically been using various international bodies for years in order to exploit lawfare. This is another version, but it's called UDI, and we need an update from Malcolm on UDI here in mid-July. Remember, the United Nations organizes in September. Malcolm, where are we?
Well, actually, today or tomorrow it was a critical deadline, or seen as one, because in order to go to the Security Council, which is the only body at the United Nations that can authorize recognition of a state, or as even conferring upon it the attributes of statehood, is the Security Council, not the General Assembly. And in order to make it in time for the opening, it was generally assumed that they would file by tomorrow. The truth is that this elongated process can be condensed, and they can apply at any time. But the general consensus right now, I think the feeling is that they will not go to the Security Council, where the U.S. said they would veto, and there was a clash between the Palestinians and the U.S. over this over the past couple days. But instead will go to the General Assembly, where they have an automatic majority. You need two-thirds of the General Assembly, meaning about 130 votes, and it's generally assumed that they have it. With the Arab League and the non-aligned movement led by Iran. So you have 130 states virtually locked up. But the important thing would be if the Europeans, like the United States, like Canada, like others who have already indicated their positions, Romania recently, the Germans have indicated their opposition to this. 100 members of the European Parliament wrote today to Ashton, the foreign minister of the EU, saying that they oppose this.
Canada.
I said
Canada. Very significant, yes.
Because they were early out there. And a number of other countries are now, the Netherlands, looks like, and the Czech Republic seem to be with Germany, making certain demands for language, but indicating that not failing to get it, that they would oppose it as well. The truth is that the unilateral declaration cannot change things on the ground, but it can become a launching pad for them to request an upgrade of their membership in the United Nations, like where they have a seat like the Vatican, to become a member state, a non-member, but a higher ranking, getting seats on some of the specialized agency, being able to go to the International Court of Justice and to ask for a ruling from them. But if most of the democracies, if the countries of Europe do not support it, that will put this resolution on a much lower level of significance. It's not clear yet which route they're going to choose. They could try to challenge and embarrass the United States into having to veto at the Security Council. There were reports they would try to use the Uniting for Peace, but the courts have ruled that is not really an option. So this is really troublemaking of the first order, as you indicated. It's endangered their aid from the United States. Many Europeans are also getting sick and tired of it. I think it will cause Abbas a huge problem, because the next day people are going to say, okay, what is different today after all that you've paid for this move? Fayyad opposes it. The prime minister opposes it. Jordan opposes this move. And it's a violation of all the agreements, the roadmap, the interim agreement. This is a clear violation.
Where's the quartet, Malcolm? Have they clarified their position?
Good question. This week the quartet met, was trying to come up with a formula. The United States put down some propositions. They could not get an agreement on recognizing Israel as a Jewish state, and the Palestinians just kept refusing. There was talk of having two states, two peoples, other formulas which really are meaningless. The United States, I think, helped prevent a statement from being adopted, and the next meeting of the quartet will take place in September. The Russians playing the usual duplicitous game. The United Nations apparatus, led by the Secretary General, were there. They do not like the UDI, but they are, bound by the majority they know exists in the United Nations. Now that he's been reelected, I think he should have more freedom to be more expressive of the reality of this move. But as we know, the United Nations has an automatic majority, an automatic bias, and that unfortunately continues.
We're 60 days out. At your point, can you make a prognostication? We'll do this every week. Where are we now? Have the Palestinians abandoned this, or they're going to press it in mid-September?
Well, I've talked to people both in the Secretariat and in the administration and in Israel over the last 24 hours to try and get an assessment of exactly where we're at. And the answer is that it's a lottery as to what the Palestinians will do. They've been sending mixed signals, but they're trying to raise the price for this. This is Abbas's game, to say we're going to go ahead, demanding that the U.S., if they don't do it, to get concessions from the U.S. and the international community of other kinds. I do not think that people are going to pay the price for it. I think the fact that you had this overwhelming vote in both houses of the Senate is a reflection of people just being fed up with Abbas's games, and this, the Arab countries have demonstrated it because they're not paying the money that they pledged. They've given less than a third, and the PA is in serious financial straits too. So the game that Abbas is playing, at one point, it's going to run out. And the question is, what is he going to do? Will he move in desperation to try to get certain concessions? Will he go all out and force a veto by the United States and then say, I'm going to go to the General Assembly, get a recognition, then go to the International Court and say, okay, I want to bring suits against Israel for violations and war crimes, et cetera, which is what he claims is the goal, not the betterment of his people, not improving their condition. And the fear on a lot of parts was that it will become a pretext for starting another intifada for violence. The people in the street are saying, we're not interested in violence. We don't want to go that route. But if you build up expectations, and this is what Fayyad says as well, the prime minister of the Palestinians, you're building expectations for something that's not going to yield the results people want.
Malcolm, I propose to you that the facts have changed since Assad and his cronies dreamed this act up. And the facts, I just list capitals: Tripoli, Cairo, Tunis, Damascus, Beirut, Ankara, Riyadh, Sana'a, Baghdad. The facts have changed.
Absolutely.
And so the apparatus that the Palestinians were counting on to support them and to present this so-called Arab street, it's no longer there.
Right. But one of the problems is that because you have all of this diversion, people are not looking at a lot of these issues, including, by the way, Iran gets a buy on this. And when they're launching missiles, they're announcing they're tripling their input, they're enriching at 20%, they're doing all these things. The Syrians are supposed to be brought on the carpet for their violations by the IEA. And yet, because of all the events in the region, these things are being overlooked or bypassed. And for Israel, when you're calculating what you can do, when you see all of the unrest in every capital around you, that certainly limits your freedom of movement and what options are open to you.